What makes the projects the most interesting is when we start looking at lines that go diagonal. And there are two ways those can come. We're going to focus now on using the slope-intercept equation. That's your y equals mx plus b. So as you look at your graph setup, equations 6 through 13 are all set up so that we just have to put a number in front of the x and a number at the end. Okay, let's take a look at a few of these diagonal lines. And I'm going to tell you the easiest ones to do with the slope-intercept equation are lines that already cross over the y-axis. So let's look at two of them. We'll look at first this diagonal line right there. The reason I like to use lines that already cross the y-axis is that we can start just by matching up our y-intercept, and I recommend doing it this way. So this diagonal line segment crosses the y-axis at right around 2.4. So at the back of the equation, I'm going to put in plus about 2.4. Now I know the angle isn't right. We're going to deal with the angle in a little bit. Our first goal, though, is just to make sure that where our diagonal line crosses the y-axis is where the line we're matching crosses the y-axis. And so as I look at my equation, 2.4 is a little bit high. Let's try 2.3. That's a little bit low. How about 2.35? That's getting closer. I want it to be kind of right in the middle. A 2.37 looks good, or a 2.38. I think either of those are okay. I think I like 7 a little bit better. And I know I'm good with my y-intercept when my diagonal line crosses the y-axis at the same height as this black diagonal line I'm trying to match. Now it's a matter of, I want to get the angle right. So here's where your slope knowledge needs to come in. When there's no number in front of the x, it's like there's a 1 in front of the x. That's your basis that you're starting with. You then can make your line steeper by making the slope something bigger than 1. That makes your line more steep. To make your line less steep, choose numbers that are smaller than 1. And then it becomes, again, kind of an estimation game until you get to where you want. So let's see what we got. You can use decimals or you can use fractions. Either are okay. So I'm going to start just by using the guess and check method. Let's try a half, see how that looks. That actually looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to adjust it a little bit by making sure I can see the whole line segment. Because what I want is not just for one end to match up, I want both ends to match up. And you see how on this end, it's maybe a little bit high? That means my line isn't quite steep enough. I want it to be a little bit steeper. So let's make this a slightly bigger number. That looks really good. Yeah, 0.52 looks really good. So what I'm looking for is, does this orange line I just put in match my black line all the way down? I think it looks nice. Looks very nice. Now you have a choice this time when it comes to your restriction. You can choose to think about your line being cut off from the left to the right. If that's the case, we would restrict using X's. And so for this first one, I want to do it that way. So let's see. I'm going to choose to use the separate cutoffs this time. Let's start with the low end. I want to keep the part of the line where the X's are to the right, so greater than this number. Now here's a little trick for you. So that you don't have to guess, you can kind of just click on the line, and then move your cursor where you want your line to end. See where it says x equals negative 2.08? Well, that means I want to keep all the x's that are above negative 2.08. And just like that, you took the guesswork out of it. The line has now ended exactly where I want it to. Again, the way I did that was just with the click and drag to get the coordinate of the point. Let's do the same thing on the other end. I want my line to go until about here. Well, about here it says the x is 0.16. Okay, so for my other restriction, I want to keep the part of the line that is to the left of 0.16. And just like that, we've got our first diagonal line segment. A quick zoom out to see how it looks. That looks pretty good. let's go one more time. I want to look next at this line segment down here. Again, I'm choosing one that already crosses the y-axis because it's easier then to match up the intercept. So for this diagonal line, I want to cross the y-axis right here, which looks to be at about negative 0.2, 0.4. I'm going to start with negative 0.3. Now, rather than a plus, because I have a negative y-intercept, I'm going to delete the plus and switch it to a minus. Make it orange so I can see it. And now check and see how well we matched up. Where this crosses the y-axis, I don't know. I think that looks pretty good. Now, if we find out later, after we adjust our slope, you can come back and you can fix your y-intercept at any time to move your line up or down a little bit. Okay, let's talk slope now. This line goes down as we look left to right. That means we want a negative slope. So I'm going to start by putting a negative number in front of everything. Currently, my line is too steep. That means the slope is too big in size. So we want a number smaller than 1. Let's try about a half. A half doesn't look very good. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the whole line segment. Yeah, that's not quite steep enough. So let's go a little bit bigger. 5.5 isn't bad. Yeah, I think I like the look of 5.5. Let me try a 5.4. 5.4 looks pretty good. How about 5.45? So here's what I'm noticing. I think I like the slope of 5.45, but my line, I want to move down just a little bit. So I'm going to now readjust my y-intercept. There we go. I like that. Now, the reason I say I like that is because it's going, see how I have about the same amount of black line on both sides the whole way? That's how you know you got a good match. Now, for your restriction, why don't we do the same thing? Why don't we cut up with our x's again? But this time I want to do it in one inequality. You can still do the two separate ones if you like. It will still work. Now, before I do that, I should have made note of what numbers I want. So on this end, I want to go till about negative 2.08 again. Okay. And on this end, I want to go until about 0.53. Okay. So for my low end, negative 2.08, less than x, less than 0.53. Let's see how things look. Whoops, too many braces there. I think that looks pretty good. Let's do the zoom out, see how things look. Yep, I like the look of those diagonal lines. Give it a quick save. So again, our process, when you're looking at those slope-intercept lines, it's easiest if you have lines that already cross the y-axis, and then get your intercept matched first, and then adjust your slope to match the line that you already have.